Welcome back, everyone, to the weekly armchair kickoff. Today we are on Keane on United. And so today we are joined by a very special guest, Terry Flowers from the Football Terrace. How's it going, Terry? How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I can't complain. I'm actually quite looking forward to the season ending. It's been quite draining this year with the amount of games we cover at the Football Terrace. So yeah, looking forward to a little bit of a break, sort of recharge the batteries ahead of the next campaign. But aside from that, really good. I'm really happy to be here, by the way. So thank you very much for inviting me on.
Thanks very much, Terry, for coming on, Joe. Especially the fact that you're doing a lot of content with the Football Terrace, and to give us, Joe, your evening here to come on here. Look, it's very much appreciated.
No problem at all.
So Terry, with regards to the Football Terrace, you've been doing that for quite some time on YouTube and on your other platforms like Twitter and stuff like that. And I see you do a lot of the live streams. Like, when did you kind of get the inspiration to kind of start kind of being like covering football on the likes of YouTube and stuff like that? And where did that all start?
I used to be the amongst the people that did it. I used to run a London supporters club, and it's all a joke. Like the supporters club was real, and I kind of was helping to run it. And there's an ongoing joke internally where I got referred to once on a website as the president of the channel. So on the website, our little website we made, it was an ongoing joke. You know, I would be referred to as Mr. President. I'd even wear a sash to games sometimes. They bought me for a laugh. It was all just a big joke. And then randomly, I got Sky News called me directly. They got my number through the site and said, "Oh, we're looking to speak to the president of the Man United London Supporters Club," which I remember laughing at on the phone. I was like, "Oh, they think that's real." Okay, yeah, great. What's up? And they said, "Well, Man United are going on to stock market today." It was back in 2012. And we want a United fan to come on the Ian Bolton show at 1:00 at the Olympic Park. It was just like in the middle of the London Olympics going on. So I went across and did the interview. I didn't think anything of it. And then Channel 5 called, BBC called. I did a few of them. I quite enjoyed it. And then from that point, I had 2 or 3 YouTube channels. Full-Time Devils were just starting up. They want me to get involved. So I used to do a little bit for them and a few others. You know, this is when everybody was it was basic, and it was what I call like proper YouTube. You know, there weren't, it wasn't. Now you almost see some of these YouTube channels now, as much as good as they are, they have the same kind of production standards as Sky, which is great, but it's different to what it was then. So I started doing that and enjoyed it. And probably between 2012 and 2017, it was something I just did as a bit of a hobby, 1, 2, maybe 3 videos a week. And then in 2017, I just decided to up my game and really kind of do more on my own platform, which at the time was called the Devil's Terrace. It was just Man United. I was a bit bored of Man United. I got bored of just sort of Man United fan channel. I was bored of all the fan channels in the sense of every week it was pretty much the same things being said, and they're all these little, and they're great at what they do. I was just bored sort of sitting in that sphere. So I thought I'm going to broaden it out and become the Football Terrace and talk about predominantly the top 6 teams in the Premier League and some subjects outside of that. But yeah, sort of generally speaking, 3 streams a day, every day now for sort of 3 years. And, you know, we've grown from sort of 6,000 subs to 140,000. And it's, you know, we're not the biggest, but we're not the smallest. And we really enjoy what we do and the level that we're at. So it's really organic how we got here. There's never really been a plan. There's never really been a way to move forward. No one that's worked for us or with us has any kind of training in this, you know. It's just been a good bit of fun. And I just enjoy the interaction really with people.
Absolutely. And like the fact that you're interacting with people, you're delivering content and you're talking about something you love, which is football, which is absolutely fantastic. And like any football fan could sit down all day and chat about it all day. And, you know, it's very good that, you know, you have that platform, you're delivering to a very large audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was the thing for me. One of the reasons I started is, although I'm a United fan from London, I didn't have very many friends personally that were Man United fans. So I used to I watched the majority of football my life with friends who were Gunnars, Tottenham. Most of my friends are Liverpool fans because most of my pals are sort of 35 years and older. And it's why the Glory Hunter tag always used to make me laugh, because where I grew up, if you were my age group and older, primarily you supported Liverpool if you supported a team outside of London. Why? Because they were kids born in the 70s and 80s when Liverpool were brilliant. So I used to find it really weird that my mates that are a little bit older than me never got called Glory Hunters for supporting Liverpool in London, but yet I was. But it's, you know, you probably get that now a little bit if there are City fans in London, even Chelsea fans in London, actually, because there were no Chelsea fans in London when I grew up. Very rarely did you see one. They honestly, they were rare. They were as rare as rocking horse poo. And now they're everywhere. So these things happen. But no, the interaction is part of what I love. And it's, I think what some people struggle with on socials is they can't differentiate between analyzing football and banter. And they try and, like, I'm putting out some stuff at the minute, winding Liverpool fans up about this kind of fake European double they're putting out. And they are kind of, they're so subtly pushing it. On a real level, does it bother me? No. But I'll tweet about it because I look to just get nibbles. I love seeing people squirm and get annoyed by it. And it's like, why are you actually annoyed? Like, think about actually, like, people can tweet me whatever they want about my club. I'm never really annoyed about it because I know what I think and feel. But yeah, I enjoy the banter element as well. It's quite fun, especially the people that can't differentiate between the two. But yeah, it's all a good. It's a good bubble.
Yeah, do you know what, Terry? I was actually going to ask you this later on the podcast, but now the fact that you brought it up, like, Liverpool fans are kind of, they're blown up saying they've won the double, and, you know, obviously they've won the Champions League last year and they've been knocked out. Like, you know, like, I just think it's absolutely ridiculous what they're doing. Do you know what I mean? It's absolutely shameless.
Do you know, when I say I'm not bothered, it's like when I'm off of Twitter or I'm not doing a show, I think about it not one bit. You know what I mean? Like, that's when I say no.
Yeah.
When I'm in the work mode, I'm in the social mode. Of course, it's shameless and embarrassing. And what I'm loving about it is the fact that the club haven't said it's a double. They haven't used
Adam Lallana today in his interview.
Yeah. Lallana said what he said, but also the club have displayed the 4 trophies with a big sign up next to them saying Champions 2019/20, which means you're taking a trophy from the previous season and you're placing it under this banner, which my belief is, I know a lot of really good Liverpool fans who all they care about is they've won the league. But there is this notion that was being pushed all season of invincible trebles, invincible doubles, invincibles and centurions. And because all those things systematically fell away, what Liverpool were left with was a very good Premier League win, but just a Premier League win. And I almost feel like there's this element of, how can we word this? Not use the word we've done a double, but how can we push it as close to that and try and make this season look better and bigger than it really is? And, you know, you don't have to be a clinical psychologist to understand that when you over-exaggerate something, when you overreach for something, there's an air of insecurity behind that. You know, you're compensating. Like the 55-year-old man who's driving the sports car with the roof down, you kind of know he's got a micro penis. He's compensating for that reason, you know. And I feel like that's what some of these guys are doing. And for me as a rival, and this is what's great about social, my job as a Man United fan on social media is to try and pull the plaster off a little bit, because it's fun. There's no harm that can come of this. It's good fun. So yeah, as I say, on socials, I'm definitely bothered by it. In real life, no. Like, it's fun. I literally, even with football, I get it out my system when I'm doing my streams, and then I quite literally get on with my life, and I don't think about it one bit. So, but yeah, it is embarrassing. It's shameless, and they know it in their heart of hearts as well. And yeah, it's quite enjoyable watching them. I mean, they're champions of England, and they're the ones squirming at the moment, which is very weird, but it's nice.
Just a follow-up question with relation to the Football Terrace. Do you have any plans for any new content coming soon, or kind of expand the channel in any way like that?
So yeah, we've got a Chelsea podcast starting very soon, which is going to be run by Anita, who's one of the hosts at the Goal Diggers, as in football goal diggers podcast. She's excellent. So she's going to be heading up the Chelsea podcast. The Liverpool podcast, which Gavin from LFC Day Trippers will be becoming a host on. That's going to become more regular. So we had to kind of drop the podcast when the restart began, because there was too much football every day to fit the podcast in.
Yeah.
Those two shows will be starting and or back at the same time. Aside from that, nothing kind of drastic. We're going to bring back some old stuff that we haven't done for a while. So we haven't done fan channel review shows because there've been no fan channels to review in terms of match reaction, essentially. Based on the previous conversation about Liverpool thinking they've done what they've done, we used to do a lot of these sort of 4 or 5 minute videos pre-recorded. I don't really know how to describe them, but it's basically me laughing at nonsense on the internet. So they're going to come back and make a bit of a return. So nothing drastic and out of the ordinary. We're going to continue with the watch longs. They're growing all the time, which is nice. And what's been nice over the restart is we've almost, again, organically grown this kind of show where after every match, we'll have 5, 6, 7 fans on from multiple clubs reviewing that particular game. And whether you're a Chelsea fan or an Arsenal fan, and it doesn't matter, if it's Man United have played, we want to get rivals on to give their opinions. I think one of the biggest problems I have with standalone fan channels is that it's the same voices almost every week giving the same opinions, and it's very sort of echo chamber-esque. None of them can really take banter or criticism. And that's what we want to get away. We want the Football Terrace to be a place of, do you know what? United have just lost. We know United fans are going to be on there, but there's an opportunity for me as a Liverpool fan to phone up and question these guys, banter these guys, or have a serious conversation with them. Nowhere's really offering that. So yeah, that's something we're going to continue to do and try and grow from this point.
Staying on Manchester United, game against West Ham last week, as you know, disappointing result at the end. What did you make of Paul Pogba's handball? Because you talked about bantering moments online and in football. That reaction was just unbelievable.
Mate, do you know, I'm one of these. I did see a tweet that came out that showed 2 other players that have done something similar where penalties weren't given this year. And there is an interpretation of the subjective law that if you're protecting your face, that makes it a natural movement. I get the argument, but for me, take that ball in your face, son. Like, United deserve pure banter for that. He deserves proper criticism for it. You take that ball square in your face. What's the worst that's going to happen? Concussion would probably be the worst thing that could happen. And even that, I would say, is unlikely. Take it in your face. You know, okay, you might get a fat lip. You might get a cut lip, fat lip, bruised eye. You know, might break your nose. I don't mean to sound harsh, but you're a footballer, you're a sportsman. Take it. I can't defend it. Like, there's no defending what Paul Pogba did in that particular moment. It was one of those things when I weren't angry. And as the first half ended and halftime went, I was live. I just became progressively more annoyed. I was thinking, how did he? Why? You just take it in the face. That's it. As soon as it is me, yeah, take it in the face, Paul. And yeah, it was terrible.
Yeah, and he's 15 yards away from the ball, so it wasn't like it was kind of an instant movement. He's 15 yards. And the fact of the matter is, he could have done more than taking the face. He could have put his back to it, do you know what I mean? He could have got out of the way. But, do you know what I mean? He handballed it, which could have a big effect on United's season. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's very serious what happened.
Yeah, I think, I'm kind of one of these people. There was this thing that came out the other day, and I think they were talking about Watford going down, and they showed the ball that crossed the line, Sheffield United Villa on their first game back, and
yeah,
goal line tech. They said there was something to do with an obscured camera. No, you didn't turn it on. We simply know you didn't have the machine weren't turned on. But essentially, they're like, oh, Watford might go down because of that decision. I'm not one of those people that believes in that, because actually you've had 38 games to accumulate enough points. The same as Man United. We've had 38 games to create enough goals, win enough games to secure top 4. But Paul Pogba's moment in itself needs to be scrutinized and ridiculed as an example. And that needs to be, for me, I have no time for it. I don't have for professional footballers. They pull out of tackles. I'm annoyed at them. They don't take balls in the face, shots in the face. If they squirm away, I ain't got any time for that. I understand a plumber who plays Sunday League football pulling out of a tackle, because if he breaks his leg and has 6 months off work, that could cripple his family financially. For a professional football player, especially at this level where you're worth millions of pounds, by the way, I agree with every penny that a football player earns. I don't think they shouldn't be allowed to express themselves and have fun in life because they're millionaires. But when it comes to your profession, it should be 100% dedication. It's like anyone who's paid a large sum of money to do their job. I don't think you shouldn't be treated like a mere mortal in that regard. Do your job to the best of your ability at all times and don't shy away from anything. Because for me, that was embarrassing. But it's done with. We managed to scrape a draw in the end and onwards to Leicester.
One of the other players who's been under a lot of criticism and sadly banter from other clubs has been David De Gea. How would you personally solve that situation come the summer? For me, I would bring Dean Henderson back and let them compete in pre-season, because every time that Dean Henderson has talked about United's number one, I feel that he makes an error at Sheffield United. So I don't personally know if he's 100% ready, and I would like to see them fight it out. But what would you go with if it was up to you?
I would take your option. And the reason I say that is, I don't know, actually, maybe I'd get rid of De Gea altogether. I think a change for him is as good as a rest. I love and respect him. I've been annoyed with him this season, but again, I won't allow that to take away from his status at the club. He has stopped us dropping down to positions like 10th and 11th since Sir Alex Ferguson retired. If you go with Henderson and you don't buy a Jan or Black as an example, the worst that will happen is that he'll make as many errors as David De Gea. And with a defence and a midfield and an attack that I think will improve anyway next season, I still think we'll make top 4. I don't think we're ready to actually win a title. So I don't think it will cost us to that degree. I can't see him making, De Gea, I don't know. The problem is with the stat, errors leading to goals, it doesn't always count because the Bergwijn goal, for instance, and the two goals against Chelsea, they don't actually count as errors because they were saves he didn't make, so they don't count as errors. But there's loads like that. There was the one against Watford this season. You have the Everton. I think there's been about 7 or 8. Is Henderson going to make that many? Maybe. And if he does, it's no worse than where we are right now. But I would like us to maybe give him a chance, because if Henderson can be that guy, he will save the club £100 million that we can then invest elsewhere. So I think for me, when you look at weighing up the risk, I would give Henderson an opportunity. I would sell De Gea, get top dollar for him, because I still think he's a brilliant goalie. I just don't think he wants to be here anymore. I think there's something in the back of his mind. You know, the only other option is he'd love to go back to Madrid. Atletico Madrid have got a goalie that's considered better than him now, who maybe wants to leave. Surely a deal can be done. I mean, Chelsea are trying to do a swap deal with Kepa. If they're going to get a goalie in for a swap deal for Jan Oblak, if Oblak wants to join, it would be happy at United. Surely Atletico would be happier to take De Gea than they would old Kit Kat fingers. Do you know what I mean? Who's actually got... I read today he's only been there 2 seasons, and Kepa has conceded 8% of Chelsea's total Premier League goals, which is 30 years of football. Nearly 10% of the goals have been conceded by Kepa. Shows how bad he is as an example. So I think from my point of view, I suppose my first option would be, do you think Henderson is good enough to get to Oblak, Alisson, De Gea's, Van der Sar's level? If he can't get to that level, I wouldn't even bother with him. That's first and foremost. If he can, give him a chance. If he can't, then you've got to go and try and get Jan Oblak. You've got to go out and get a top-level goalkeeper if we can afford it. And it appears this season, like I said, he's got a buyout clause of 109 million, Jan Oblak. I think they think you can get him cheaper because of the Corona situation. In a year or two's time, he'll be 29, so maybe you won't want to buy him, but then you've got to pay top dollar anyway. So it's a real fine balance. But the one thing I would say for sure, David De Gea done for me as Man United goalkeeper. I think he's past his best for us. We need to capitalize and cash in on him now, and then go to pastures new, I think.
Yeah, and like I look at the De Gea situation with the respect that since the 2018 World Cup, his confidence has just been absolutely destroyed. And I think we're at a point now where I think we need to offload, because the more points he's costing us, like it's a costly investment. He's on a contract of 375,000 a week. Like, you have to get rid of him. Like, you can't have him as your number 2 with that wage bill. It's almost like Alexis Sanchez. You had to get rid of him because of his wage bill, and because the morale would be affecting the dressing room if you have a player on that wage on the bench.
I agree. I think that United tried their best with De Gea to give him that money, to make him feel secure, to get the very best out of him again. And then hopefully, he then remains at his best for another 4, 5, 6 years. But the gamble hasn't worked. And he just doesn't look the same goalie anymore. And whether it's confidence, I think it's more concentration. The second goal he let in against Chelsea, it almost looked deliberate. It wasn't. I'm sure it wasn't, but it almost looked that way, which tells me his mind ain't there. He's not concentrating like he should be. So, yeah, we have to move on from him, because, we've improved so much as a defensive unit this year. We have conceded 38% less goals than the prior campaign in the league. But when I think about at least 6 or 7 of our goals this season are 2 or 3 are like actual errors from him. And then I would say a good 7 or 8 were saves that he just should be making, that any top-level goalie would be making, as an example. And those games have actually cost us, the Watford game, it was the opening goal. Palace would just equalise, an average shot at the near post let in. That's a point dropped, as an example. You start going through it with De Gea, and it's these moments where it's not even like a bad pass back. Like, he makes a bad pass because the defender didn't make the right movement. These were shots that they hit at him, and you're not feeling worried. Does that make sense? Like the
Yeah.
Watford one where he caught the ball and dropped it in his own net. As soon as that ball was going towards goal, I've almost stopped watching that element of the pitch. And I'm actually looking for who he can pick the ball up and throw it to for a counter-attack. And it's ended up going in. The Chelsea second goal, the same. You know, it sort of hit him. Even the first goal, when Giroud got to it, he hit it. And then you see the speed of the ball moving towards the goalie. I just relaxed because you'd think a top-level goalie saves that. And he doesn't. So for me, those elements have cost us more than any other. You know, Lindelof's made a lot of mistakes at the back this year. There's been a few from Maguire as well. But then it's what's come after that. You know, for me, Bergwijn gets past Maguire too easily. But then Bergwijn, he's now being closed down. So Bergwijn shoots early. It's an average shot. It should be saved. And as a team, you handle the mistake and get through it. The problem we have is that we can't have a situation where a defender or midfielder makes a mistake and then an average shot is made and then it goes in. That for me is very, very worrying because you need that goalie. It's why Liverpool are so good. Every now and then, Gomez or Van Dijk will make a mistake or they'll be opened up. But then Alisson turns up with the highest save percentage at the elite level in the league and saves 60, 70% of the shots. And it's like, well, how are you going to score past them? That's what Man United were like. And where I do get annoyed is that we had David De Gea at his best for 5 years, but we had the worst midfield and defense we've ever had in the Premier League era. Like, it's almost like now we're getting better again. I just wish we had the De Gea from 5 years ago because we'd be, you know, there'd be an extra 10, 15 points a season that he'd win us. And instead, he's losing it for us now, which is unfortunate.
Looking ahead to the Leicester game, how do you feel going into the game in the back of a defeat from Chelsea, a draw against West Ham? In terms of the tactics also, what would you be thinking that Ollie should be doing ahead of this game?
I'm really excited. And I know it's weird how maybe the younger generation of United fans don't remember this, but Man United do things the hard way. We always have done. And it's something that I love about being a Manchester United fan. I love the fact that this final, it's a cup final. Tomorrow is a cup final for us. And I know there's a few Reds out there that say we shouldn't celebrate finishing top four. Yeah, it depends how far you take the celebration. I'm not talking open bus parades. I'm not talking about getting a T-shirt made. But I will celebrate the win because it will happen. And I'll be happy that we're in the Champions League because being in the Champions League is great. I want Champions League music on a Tuesday or a Wednesday and not that weird song on Thursday night. So that's just what I want. I don't like these 6 o'clock kickoffs. You know, I want to be on Tuesday. And, you know, it's even harder in the league. You know, you play Thursday, Sunday. And I don't actually see the difference between Thursday, Sunday and Wednesday, Saturday. But there seems to be something psychological about it, which is difficult for teams. And, you know, it's like with the Europa League games. You can't even get up for them. It takes, even like the first round of knockout stages, when you're playing LASK or LAKS, I don't know what they're called, Club Brugge, these teams, I'm sitting there watching it, wanting to win, but there's no excitement going through me at all. So, yeah, I'll be happy when we do it. Will we do it? 4-2-3-1 has to be the formation. Pick our strongest team. Let them drink Red Bull, Lucasade, eat chocolate, whatever they need to have the energy to get through it. Leicester have 6 first-team players out. If we should beat them. I think we will beat them. If we don't, then we know the final element at Man United that needs to be resolved, and it's the element of bottle. And I think that's the problem we have at the moment, is because over 7 years, our winning edge has been eroded from us as a football club. And we've become a little bit like Liverpool of old. And we're in that same mold that the Tottenhams find themselves in, where I think as a collective group and as a football club, we just don't quite have enough belief in ourselves to get over the line. And it's now merged into the fans. The fans feel like that, where we never used to. Does that make sense? Like, we used to go a goal down and we'd know we'd come back 9 times out of 10. We never went into a game feeling like the massive underdogs, although you were nervous. Now we don't feel that way. So I think tomorrow could also serve as a real big turning point for this team to say, you know what, we achieved something when a lot of people were doubting us. You know, it completes the comeback. Last year we had that great run from Ollie that put us in contention with the Champions League when we were miles away, and then we started those last few months and we didn't get over the line. This season we started bad. We've come on strong since Bruno's come in. You know, created the Avengers. You know, we're doing this. We're looking good. And then if we imagine pulling back the 14-point gap and then losing tomorrow and missing out, that will be so damaging for the mentality of this group. There's a part of me that thinks that the club might even dismiss Ollie if that happens. And I don't know if psychologically they can think. I was thinking about it a lot today. I think it would have such a. I keep thinking when we win it, it's going to push us to next levels. I also have to, echo that and think, if we lose this game tomorrow and we don't make it, I think it could destroy us mentally. I really do. And I'm worried about that as a Man United fan, no doubt.
I look at that as well. Like, you look at last season, like you made the point that we went on that, I think it was 11 or 12 game unbeaten run when Ollie first came in, them first 3 months, and we were in Champions League contention. And then we did drop points against Arsenal after the PSG game. And then we went on to drop points, I think it was against Huddersfield, Cardiff and Chelsea in the last couple of games. And, you know, if we picked up points in them last 3 games that I just mentioned, we would have finished in the top 4.
Yeah.
And you look at it now, will this happen again? Because obviously it's kind of the same kind of thing. Lost against Chelsea, drew against West Ham, drew against Southampton. Now, I suppose we have the cup final on Sunday. So I'm confident going in. I think we'll get the result, but it's going to be probably the most nervy game of the season I've watched, definitely.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think Aaron that comes on our show, Aaron yesterday was going through all the results this year where Chelsea have dropped points before us. Not once have we gone on to win the game. So I think maybe because we're playing at the same time, whenever we've gone, most of the games where we've caught up points on Chelsea, for instance, and with Leicester, it's where we've gone first. So hopefully tomorrow that plays into our hands in the sense of we're all playing at the same time. So yeah, it's one of them things for me, because I almost feel like if, you know, some of the games where we've had opportunities to go third, if our rivals would have also won first, and I think we'd have been okay. So yeah, I am nervous, but I do have confidence in what we're doing. I have confidence in what Ollie is trying to build. But then I just do have this deep underlying fear that if it goes wrong tomorrow, I don't know if Ollie can pick everybody back up again, because it will almost feel like 2 years running. We've gone on these great runs to get ourselves back. We've started to look more like Man United again, and then we just haven't had enough to get over the line. I don't know how he mentally picks us up from that. But again, that's just maybe me sitting here tonight, really nervous, really, really sort of concerned. You know, Man United can still bring in players. Man United can still attract Sancho without Champions League football, but it's how you pick up the collective group. And maybe it is signings, as an example. You know, we then also go into the Europa League, where we can still win a place in the Champions League. So we have a second bite of the cherry. But wouldn't it be nice to go into that tournament and just know that this is for a trophy? This isn't to get into the Champions League. It would be lovely to go in with that in our minds.
It would be, and I think, sorry, Keane, about the thing that impresses me most if we do get in is the fact that we've clawed back the points from Leicester, who were miles ahead, as you mentioned earlier. However, one of the things about getting into the Champions League that does frustrate me at times is I hate when teams get into it, but they don't buy in the summer to get even stronger, to have a chance of competing in it. Just where do you think United need to recruit this summer if the club are to try and compete not only in the Premier League, but the Champions League, should we get there?
Sancho as an individual is imperative. That right-hand side of our attack has been a problem. Barring 1.5 years where Valencia looked decent, we haven't replaced Cristiano Ronaldo, and that was 2009. You know, since then I've been married, divorced, and had 3 children. It's a long period of time to not have that resolved. I think a centre-back partner for Maguire is needed. Maguire takes a lot of the stick, but I think he does need a partner next to him. All top centre-backs need a good partner next to them. As an example, those 2 areas are massively important. And then it comes about re-signing Pogba. So important. Like, if Pogba leaves, there's almost no... That's a big problem. But I want Pogba to re-sign. And then it's building out squad strength in depth. So maybe looking at a left-back that can... A lot of people think we need a major left-back. I think we can get away with another season without that position. That could be the following summer. But I look at the Grealishes, the Van der Beeks that we're linked with. We need to improve on the backup players we've got. So where you look at Pereira, Mata, Lingard, these individuals, I think we need to improve those areas. And if we can bring in another 2 or 3, so we can get 4 signings of good quality that improve the first team and improve our bench, move out 3 or 4 players, then I look at that as really good progression. And if Paul Pogba stays, you know, I'll think about it this way. You know, you look at Donny van der Beek, who can play central midfield or more attacking. In some of these games in the run-in where we've looked a little bit tired, wouldn't it have been nice to have said, all right, okay, Paul and Matic, you're getting a rest today, and it's Grealish and Van der Beek that are coming into your positions instead of... Like, I like Scotty Mac, but he ain't on there. Scotty McTominay is not on the level of Van der Beek, as an example, and Pereira and Lingard are not on the level of Jack Grealish for me. So that's where we need to improve. And if we do that, and if we put our money where our mouths are, we're going to move forward. If we just bring in Jadon Sancho, although our starting lineup still looks good, You start scratching below that surface, and there's major problems. And we might be lucky and have a season like Liverpool where there's only you don't have too many major injuries at the same time. You can cope. But look at our team when we didn't have Pogba and before Bruno arrived. We just lack so much creativity. That needs to be addressed massively. And as I say, a partner for if we brought in, I was going to throw Koulibaly's name in. If Koulibaly came in and went next to Maguire, we signed Van der Beek, Grealish, and Sancho. I honestly think we can push Liverpool next year. We could finish within 10 points of them. And I'm talking, you get to the last 4 or 5 games of the campaign, we would be mathematically plausible to win the league. And I don't think we'll win it next year, but that's how much improvement we'd get with those types of 4 players. But it's down to Woodward and co. I'm sure Ollie wants players of that quality, but it's down to Woodward and Matt Judge to go out there and get those deals over the line.
Absolutely. And there on Saturday, Terry, we had Rob Dawson from ESPN on. And me and Callum, we were chatting to him kind of about transfers and stuff like that. And Rob was saying to us, if he was a betting man, Joe, you expect to see Sancho at United next season. Now, other people in the media have obviously been saying that Champions League, if we don't get that, we don't get Sancho. But I don't believe that's true. I think the attraction of Manchester United and the fact he said he wants to return to England, I think that's enough. I think we'll definitely get Sancho anyway, 100% in the summer.
Yeah, for me, I was told back in December by a very reliable individual who's got a very senior job with a sports consultancy. They're a financial firm, but he works in quite literally his department is sports consultancy. They work alongside a lot of football clubs for multiple reasons. One of the biggest is to help them sell or buy at the right prices. They actually, it's these consultancies who actually put together the formulas that equate the price of players. And me and him were just chatting over some drinks. We met up in London, had some drinks, and he just said, yeah, in the summer, Sancho said no to Man United in the sense of, I don't know if it's the right place for me. And he's now changed his mind. He'd be happy to join them. United are leading the race. They're working on a financial package to be able to buy him. They've made some initial early inquiries. But his words were, if I was a betting man, I would say he's going to Manchester United based on the fact that Dortmund are going to play hardball, but he would like to join. And there's something that journalists never pick up on when it comes to footballers. And I've been very fortunate with previous jobs of mine to sit down and have these frank conversations with players where there isn't a camera, it's not being recorded, it isn't there to be broadcast later. And the amount of them, so Nuno, manager of Wolves, said this to me as an example. He was offered Champions League clubs when he was signed for Wolves. It was 3 Champions League clubs who offered him big contracts, big money to come in and run their clubs, and he said no. I don't know why. He said, "Well, I think I can build a bigger legacy for myself in football by completing the project that Wolves want done to turn them into a Champions League team, to turn them into like a massive club over the next 10 years." And he said there was something about that where if I just went to one of these Champions League clubs and had 2 or 3 good years where we did a quarterfinal, maybe a semi-final, had a few good results. He says it would almost be like a flash in the pan. He didn't use that expression. He used a Portuguese expression that meant the same sort of thing. But he said it would almost just be, it'd be noticed and remembered then. So if you think about it now, you look at Jardine at Monaco. Who's talking about him now as a manager? No one.
No one.
But he had those flash in the pan moments with Monaco. Nuno felt that the Wolves' package was better. A lot of football players care about legacy. It's one of the reasons I think Thiago is looking so heavily at Liverpool right now. He can become one of only a handful of players to be an integral member of a team who wins the domestic league title in 3 different countries. We know Ronaldo's done that. And there's a handful of other people. But you actually start going through, just think of all the legends of the game in the last 30 years. Who did it in 3 of the top 5 leagues and was an integral part? So there's the element of for Thiago to go to Liverpool now, he can do something that's been achieved by very few people. And I think that a lot of players care about their legacy in the game and managers care. And I think that's with Jadon Sancho. The biggest sell Man United have is, yes, the 7 shirt, yes, the salary. But, we're on the way up. We are building our culture again. If you are part of the team that reignites Man United and wins us a title, your status in football is unprecedented. Like you are going to just shoot to, and it's why the younger generation of Man United fans don't understand why my generation and the older generation love Ryan Giggs, David Beckham, Gary Neville, Cantona, Schmeichel so much. And no matter what they say about the club now or people we like, we still back them because these were our heroes who reignited Man United again. And I think that that's something that I would be pulling on massively with Jadon, saying, look, you know, you can go to City, you could win the treble 3 years running at City. You're still going to have a better legacy in the game if you win a Premier League with Man United because of the size of the club. And I think that's a big draw for people. I really, really do. Your name living on forever in football history, I think it really matters.
Absolutely. With relation to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Terry, like when Jose Mourinho ultimately got the sack in December 2018, there was a lot of calls for Maurizio Pochettino to come in and succeed Mourinho. Like, how do you assess Ole's term as like interim manager and also like permanent manager? Do you think he's the right man for the job? Do you think his recruitment and kind of the morale he's trying to build in the dressing room was good? Like, how do you think the job he's doing so far?
Recruitment, I think, has been excellent. The morale, the dressing room is fantastic, best since Fergie. And we know that because he's had some bad months where in the modern day game, you normally lose the dressing room, and he hasn't lost the dressing room, which I think is important. Even when we were going through those bad games, the one thing I wouldn't say about the team is we lack fight. And some people in recent matches say we've looked like we're not interested. No, we're exhausted. There's a difference between lacking fight and being out on your ass. Overall with Ole, I think he had some fantastic moments, some great runs, some brilliant results. This run of catching Leicester is excellent, but he has to get over the line. Is he good enough? I'm Ole in, but I'm not deluding myself to believing yet that he's capable of winning a Premier League or a Champions League. But what he is good enough for and what he's needed for at this moment in time is to continue rebuilding the culture and getting the foundations solid again. And that's what went wrong. We went from Fergie, and we had 3 different managers in a 5-6 year span who had 3 completely different ideologies, processes, training methods, diet methods, discipline methods, scouting networks. Every time we changed manager, we just rocked the apple cart again. And we had to, we dug out the foundations. We had to start rebuilding again. Oh, that ain't working. Let's start it again. And it felt like, and that would be my fear about Poch coming in now. He'd want to do that. What needs to happen is we need to build a foundation and processes across the club. And whoever comes in, unless you do a Fergie and you end up being here for 20 odd years and you're 8 years into that and it looks like you're going to stay here for a long time, maybe then you get to change things. Up until that point, this is how Man United run. This is the kind of football that we want. This is how we recruit. This is how our scouting system works. You have a saying it, but you come in as the manager and this is your remit. That way, if that manager doesn't work out, isn't good enough, it's an easier thing to cut them out and paste in somebody else as opposed to trying to find the new Fergie that has control over everything. And Fergie didn't come in and have control over everything. It took him years to generate that level of power in the club. So I think that's where we've gone wrong for so many times since Fergie's retired. So I think Ole's imperative for us to continue moving forward. We need to build those solid foundations. And who knows, he might surprise us. What would be really great, though, this is banter again. This is football rivalry talking. If he does turn it around to a point where he can win a league, it silences every rival forever because he's still called the PE teacher right now. So for Arsenal fans and Tottenham fans that have slagged Ole off all season, it's embarrassing that we're finishing in front of you. It's embarrassing that we're finishing in front of you because a PE teacher's managing us, right? We've literally gone to a high school and grabbed the PE teacher and he's better than your coach. So that's almost an element of I'm quite happy for rivals to keep bantering because if he does pull something off, I mean, imagine the greatest ever team in Premier League history, Liverpool. Imagine they get toppled next year or the year after by Ole, who's the PE teacher. It's peak. It's peak. It is what it is. So yeah, for me, I've got a lot of faith in him. By the end of next season, I think my mind will be fully made up. And I think if we get the right signings, and then there can be no excuses. Then he's had 2 summers. There'll be a starting 11 that will be primarily his players. He'll have a squad that's primarily in his image, and there'll be less excuses. And I would expect to see next season. We've had 17 wins. Let's say we finish tomorrow on 18 wins. Fingers crossed. I would expect next season we don't get at least 25 wins in the league and reduce our losses from, I think we're on 8 down to about 5 at minimum. I won't be. I might be happy. You might end up doing that and winning the league. Who bloody knows? Context is important, but I want to see that level of progression where we're just winning more games and we look more solid. I think that's going to be really important.
We've talked about players that Ole should recruit. Who do you think he has to get out of the club? Because you mentioned earlier on the likes of Lingard, Pereira. There's a few others I think they need to go as well. The likes of Jones, Sanchez, obviously out loan, Smalling as well. Who do you think he needs to make sure he definitely gets rid of this summer if he possibly can?
Oh, from my point of view, I would say, Lingard and Pereira, Smalling, Jones, Rojo. These Sanchez, although he's not here, has to go. They're all they've got no chance of playing in this team again. We don't want them in this team again. We've moved on from that. And from a financial standpoint, there's about 52 to 53 million pound a year in salaries you free up. You then can probably raise 50 to 60 million pound in the sale price for all those players. So you're talking about additional income of 120 million pounds. And from an accounting point of view, that would be counted in year one for the sales and the salary being saved. You can then have a big summer of signings, and that would be 2 years running of big summer signings. And if this year's signings in 2020 are as good as the 2019 signings under Ollie, it means in your 2021 summer you don't need to go big, because the 4 or 5 we bought this year are still doing well. The 3 or 4 we buy this following year are doing well. You've already got your Rashfords, Martials, Pogbas at the club, for instance, that are doing the business. It just makes life a lot easier. You know, look at Liverpool. Liverpool were able to go a whole summer without buying somebody and still be brilliant because they'd spent money in previous years to make themselves strong. That's what we need to hope for as a football club. So as long as Ollie gets this summer signings right, all those players I've mentioned, that they're barely going to see the field of play. We've got some really good academy players as well that I would prefer to be given a chance. And I made the example earlier about Henderson being given a chance, and it can't be any worse. I remember saying this all summer and just being shot down by mainstream media journalists laughing. I remember one guy actually laughing at what I said. I'm not going to say what journalist it was. That will be getting exposed tomorrow once the season ends. But I said I don't see the issue with not replacing like Lukaku or Sanchez. And it's terrible business. I said I don't think it is, because Lukaku wasn't right for our system. And I said, I think Anthony Martial can step up to the plate. And I said, between him and Rashford, they'll score more goals. And I said, also, Greenwood's going to replace Sanchez in the team. Sanchez scored 5 goals in 18 months. As long as Greenwood scores at least 5 goals, we're no worse off. Like, if he scores 5 in one season, we're better off. Like, it can't be any worse than it is. So I don't think it's bad. And obviously, Greenwood on, 17, 18 goals?
Yeah.
He's almost quadrupled Sanchez's amount, and he's on about $5,000 a week. So it's actually phenomenal business by Manchester United to replace Greenwood with Alexis Sanchez with Greenwood. So yeah, I just look at it this way: we can get rid of those 4 or 5 players, get them off the wage bill, spend that money wisely. You really will see a big progression in Man United next year.
Absolutely, and I'd love to see us get Jack Grealish in. Now I know, like, over here in Ireland, he isn't the most loved person, obviously, because he chose England over Ireland. But, like, apart from that, I love Jack Grealish. He's a fantastic player. You can see he works hard. He wears his heart in his sleeve when he's on the pitch. And he's basically carried Villa on his back this season. Do you know what I mean? He could that game against Arsenal the other night could have single-handedly kept Villa up. I think he'd be a fantastic player, especially off the bench, definitely next season.
Yeah, and he's so, he's like a Swiss Army knife. He's so multifaceted. He can play on the left, can play centrally, can play a little deeper. He'd be great. And, we've all seen in recent weeks where, like, Rashford's looking a bit tired. He's come back from the injuries, had a lot of game time. I would have loved in the last 3 games for Grealish to have started at least 2 of them to give Rashford a bit of a respite. The problem we have is that once we go beyond Rashford or beyond Bruno in those positions, there is no one of any real quality. Pereira, Lingard are just not it. So Jack Grealish gives us strength in depth, but I also think he's got something about him. He will push those boys in front of him hard. And if they're not performing, he can then come in. And that's what we need at Manchester United, this element
competition.
Yeah, we need it. And it needs to be competition from players that are legitimately good enough to outperform you on a regular basis, not competition. Because there's no Lingard and Pereira can't compete. Lingard and Pereira trying to compete against Greenwood, Martial, Bruno, and Rashford is like, it's like Amir Khan getting in the ring with Anthony Joshua. It just there's no contest.
Hey, that nearly happened when Khan was alleging them tweets.
Yeah, can you imagine that fight? Like, Amir Khan would have to eat about 10,000 calories a day for 2 years to even probably be legally allowed in the ring with him. But yeah, it would have been over in one jab and he'd have been gone. And that's how I feel about those guys. So yeah, I hear that.
Lads, just for both of you, tomorrow's game with Leicester. I'm going to get score predictions from both of yourselves. Callum, I'm going to come to you first with regards to how do you think it's going to go down tomorrow?
I think United will win 2-0. I think Leicester obviously need to go for this game tomorrow and be quite open because their dip in form has been poor. I think for Brendan Rodgers, he's a guy who's got a lot on the line tomorrow, in the sense that to be the manager who was sitting in third, well clear of his competitors, to drop completely out of the top four for him, I think is unthinkable. So he's going to have to go all out. And in the end, I think that's where United will punish them, because, as Ollie mentioned in his press conferences this week, 2 poor performances you would expect not to play in a cup final type atmosphere and match. This is it, and the club know that it's all or nothing in many senses, and I think the club will get it done. And I'll be interested to see what happens with Brendan Rodgers, because to go from third to Europa League, as I've said to you in this show many a time, half of Scotland will be jubilant.
Terry, how are you feeling? How do you think it's going to go down?
3-1 United. That's what I'm thinking. I've got a little feeling Pogba might do something tomorrow. So, like, just to finalise it, like cherry on top of the icing on top of the cake, a little Pogba screamer, just to silence a few people. It'll give us a little dance as well. That'll wind up soonest, definitely. But yeah, no, I'm confident. I'm not disrespecting Leicester, but they've got 6 first teamers out. They've got 6 first team players out. To not beat them tomorrow is embarrassing.
It'd be a disaster.
Oh, it will be, because it'll be on top for us, in the sense of we might not make top 4. We get beat by a team that are weakened. The banter will be crazy. But do you know what? This 2020 has been so mad. We could lose 4-0 tomorrow, but then Wolves go and beat Chelsea. We made it anyway. And you're like, but that would be typical 2020. But I would still be annoyed after the game, even if that happened. And that's because it isn't just about top 4. It isn't even tomorrow. The celebrations won't be about top 4. Partly they will be, but it'd be more about we made top 4, not we kind of got in because Chelsea threw it away themselves. Like, I want to win tomorrow, and then we've qualified. Does that make sense? It won't feel like default or anything. Although we've done, that's even a bit harsh, really, because we've pushed ourselves back into this position by coming back. But I want us to finish. I want us to finish the job. Do you get what I mean? I want us to be the ones who put the final nail in the coffin and don't sort of have to rely on anybody else. That way, you can feel like we came back. We were 6-7 points behind you. We were 14 points behind Leicester, and we came back. And I think that, for me, is the most important element.
Absolutely. I myself, I was on the Stretty News podcast the other day, and I kind of said, like, look, it'd be a kind of a nervy affair, probably 2-1 United, but kind of, if I had to put 50 quid on it, I'll go 2-0. I fancy us to keep a clean sheet tomorrow. I think Harry Maguire has a lot to prove, especially coming back to the King Power Stadium. You know, he's had his critics, but I think Harry Maguire will show proper leadership tomorrow. We'll go out and get the win. And I'd say Martial and just for our esteemed colleague Steve McGrath, who's very critical of Bruno Fernandes calling him a penalty merchant, I hope we get a VAR awarded penalty and Bruno Fernandes puts it in the back of the net.
Yeah, I know yourselves are connected to a number of media outlets, and real good ones I watch as well. Bruno is such an enigma. I said that the video I've made about how he's triggered the world of football, and we didn't release it. I only didn't release the video because we lost our next game and he played pretty poorly, which is also mad. Like, he's the first football player I've seen ever be absolutely destroyed for having one bad game. Like, when you think about how good he's been since he's been at the club, or even a quiet game rather than a bad game. But yeah, Bruno Fernandes is brilliant, because I think the issue a lot of media outlets will have with him is so many of United signings for 7 years have flopped. He hasn't. So it's like, God, how do we spin this one into creating traffic against Man United? They say he's overrated. Like, it's mad. I love it. I mean, and it's like penalties in the last season. This season's been the year of the penalty. I remember how much stick United got at the beginning of the season, because penalties were really important. You had to make sure you score them.
We were missing a lot of penalties at the start of the season.
Pogba missed, and then Rashi missed, and it was like, you've got to take your penalties. Elite level players score their penalties, and then Rashi starts scoring loads of penalties, and his goal scoring tally goes up. And he's like, well, they're not real goals when they're penalties, are they? And I'm like, hang on a minute. A week ago, the mainstream media was telling us missing penalties is an unforgivable sin. Do you know what I mean? So a Harry Potter level unforgivable sin, where you're going to end up someone's going to Spelliarmus you in the head. Now, penalties are half a goal, you know? And I had this conversation with a Liverpool fan, and it was like we worked something like 30% of Gerrard's Premier League goals, which they love talking about how many goals he scored with penalties. So it's like, would you be happy if the Premier League announced tomorrow that those goals are going to be taken away from Gerrard? Because as you've said, they're not real goals. No, that's different. That's different because he's a midfielder. And well, last year you didn't like Pogba's penalties. You said they weren't real goals. So for me, as soon as you see people try and reinvent the game of football, a bit like Firmino goals, you know, he doesn't score enough goals. So Liverpool fans very creatively invented this notion of he's a defensive striker. It's like, that's a good finesse, but it don't wash with any real football fans. You just mean he's not a clinical goal scorer anymore, or hasn't been. But yeah, I love it. I love what Bruno's done to the world. I love how he's triggered people. And mark my words, in 2 years' time, people will be going, yeah, you were right, Terry. He simply is the best attacking midfield player in the Premier League. He's mustard. Absolute mustard.
Absolutely. Bruno's been absolutely fantastic, and what he's done since he's come in, like, you know, for the price tag we got him for 49 million, looks like an absolute steal right now.
I couldn't agree more.
Terry, thanks very much for coming on this evening. It's been a fantastic chat to you about United and the football terrace. So myself and Callum, we really do appreciate that you did come on. And Callum, again, thanks very much for coming on. You're doing your thing with Football CFB at the moment, and you know, I've seen the announcement of your Scottish Premier League show as well. That's absolutely fantastic. And when is that starting?
So we recorded the first main one just last week, and then this week I'm joined by Morton legend Andy Ritchie, who's going to talk to me about the return of the Premiership, and I'll also be joined by the main members of the Celtic podcast, 20 Minute Tims, and the Rangers podcast, This is Ibrox, to talk all about the title race, because those fans obviously have the vested interest as Celtic go for 10 in a row.
Can I ask a question about? I don't watch a lot of Scottish football, but it's obviously I only really watch the derby, like, because it's all I have time for. But I love the derby. Did Celtic get awarded the league this year?
So basically, the league was the same in France. It was essentially called, but they were 12 points clear.
Interesting. What? Yeah, I mean, I kind of want Rangers to win a title back, because I just want to see a bit of like the one thing, the issue when Rangers fell out.
You can't have Gerrard win a league, Terry. You can't.
I'm not worried about that so much. It's more to do with the fact that, like, Scotland, we know what happened to Scottish football over a period of time. Like the standard has slightly dropped in Scottish football. You know, you're seeing Scottish Premiership players leaving and playing a lot of Championship football because the money and stuff was better. But like Rangers, what happened to Rangers happened to Rangers. But now they're back. I would like it to get to that point of them actually, you know, neck and neck with each other, one winning, the other one winning. I think that would be great for Scottish football to actually have it sort of get that competitiveness back again. Do you know what I mean? Because for many years now, it literally has been a one-horse race, as far as I can see from the outside.
Well, that's been true. I think since Gerrard's came in, he's improved Rangers, but not to the level, as you've said, where it's going to the last day that it used to do. But in regards to players, as you said there, like Andy Robertson, Kieran Tierney, John McGinn, we're still producing good players that can play well in the Premier League. But as you say, the more competitive the league can become, with Rangers getting stronger and getting into the Champions League as Celtic have done, then hopefully the game can get back to previous levels. But I do agree with you in terms of competitiveness. It's not been as competitive for a number of years, but as I say, Gerrard is closing that gap, just not as quickly as I think he would like to.
Yeah, and money's a big player in all of that, as you say. As soon as yourselves produce sort of a top-level player, the Premier League clubs come knocking, and it's so hard for someone to turn down the riches of the Premier League. And I think we'd all do the same, you know, no matter how much we like our jobs. If someone comes along and says, look, we'll give you a 150%, 200% pay rise, it's like, okay, all right, I love you all, but I'm going down there. I'm going to go check them out. But no, well done on the announcement of your show, mate. Congratulations.
No, thank you. I really appreciate that, and keep up the great work with the Football Terrace as well.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
So this will be available, lads, on YouTube, Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts coming soon. And next week we do have another United show, our season review. So hopefully that will be a positive show, and we'll all have smiles on our faces with Champions League qualification. Thanks very much, lads, for coming on. Have a good evening.
Pleasure.
Thanks very much.
Cheers, boys.